Yesterday, we asked the question, and Alan said something which was phenomenal, something which he had heard. Chazal, he'd asked, we discussed, we asked the question 2 days ago, but he made a point, which was a very good point, that if Avram already had a visit from Hashem, which is Bika Cholim, and the Gemara tells us that when a person is Bika Cholim, if he's Ben Gilo, if you're born on the same star, you take 1/60th of the illness of that person. So if Hashem already had visited him, there's no question Hashem's visit should have healed him. Totally. So why did he have to send one of the Malachim, Raphael, was sent to Avram to heal Avram? He should have been healed just from Hashem's visit. He should have had a full recovery. But yet we see he still was compromised health-wise because of the Milo, because of the circumcision. Not only that, you see clearly, Hashem had taken the son out of its sheath to give him a respite to be able to recover from the Milo. And this was the third day, which was the most difficult day of recovery. Hashem's visit should have healed him immediately. He could have had the best of both worlds. The Malach, regular wayfarers could come, let him do his hospitality, and as a result of that, he could continue. But Hashem had to take the sun out of its sheath to what? To discourage people from going out, to give Avram that break, the respite from hospitality. When Hashem saw that he was mitzvah, that he was pained, that there were no wayfarers coming, so he sent Malachim in human form. But one of the Malachim was Raphael. That was the question I asked. So he wanted to say the reason why maybe Hashem didn't heal him fully, because it says that when he had run to greet them and the drips of blood were dripping, he gets schar for that, for those driplets. We'll see in a moment. I want to read the Midrash. We were zochet to the Korban Pesach because despite his open wound, he was so committed to Achnosis Orchim, it's like he didn't exist at the moment. He didn't even feel the blood dripping out of him when he ran to do the Achnosis Orchim. So because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted him to have the schus of that level of sacrifice, therefore he didn't heal him. Okay, I had said that because he was mitzvah, because he was painful, Chil Hashem, therefore this Achnosis Orchim was more unique than all the Achnosis Orchim that he had done. That's what we had said. And therefore we merited the Adei HaKavod, we merited the Be'er Shel Miriam, we merited the Mon, we merited all these things, because here there was a greater level of sacrifice for Chil Hashem. That day there were no wayfarers coming. He was paying that every moment he was Chil Hashem, because whoever didn't come, he remained a pagan. He was living this false narrative. Therefore, for that pain, therefore every aspect of the Hachnos Zorchem was embedded with this feeling of bringing about Kiddush Hashem, chipping away at the Chil Hashem. Okay? So here the Midrash says this. He ran towards them. The blood of the Mila began dripping. It was an open wound. In the merit of your life, I will have mercy on your children because of two bloods, and you'll be compensated. Epora, misoneim, you'll be compensated, and therefore you'll be protected from your enemies because of those two driplets of blood. Shenemar, as Yechezkel HaNavi says, "Ve'ever alecho, alayich erech misposesim tomoyach." We say this at every bris. The Mol says the psukim after the Milo, and then we say we say this in Haggadah at the Seder. Ve'ever alayich ve'erech misposesim tomoyach. This is at time of the Makas Bechoros. Hashem had seen us wallowing in our bloods, plural bloods, and our Kodesh Baruch Hu says, because of these two bloods you will live. Shnei dom shenemar, ve'omar loch b'damai chayi, zedam Pesach. In the merit of the Dam Pesach, Hashem protected us from during the Makas Bechoros. Ve'omar loch b'damai chayi, zedam Milo. we were circumcised, we had to be circumcised before the Korban Pesach. So because of those two bloods, we were protected from the Makas Bechoros. But why did we merit to be given those two bloods? In the merit that Avraham Avinu, when he ran towards the Malachim, there were driplets of blood dripping out of him. That was the Midah Keneged Midah. It's interesting. We're saying that the reason why Avram was pained, and the reason when he saw the Malachim, he saw these wayfarers, wasn't aware at the time they were angels, he ran, because now here he's pained because of Chil Hashem, and now all of a sudden he sees he's able to change the setting, to bring Kiddush Hashem. What was the whole idea of Makas Bechoros? This was the Gula. This was the Yad Chazokah. Hashem says, they will see yet what's coming, and with that you're going to leave Egypt. What was the objective of Yitzis Mitzrayim, which came out through the Makas Bechoros? Kabbalah Satorah. That was the beginning of the ascent of Kabbalah Satorah. What was Kabbalah Satorah? That was the correction of the Chet of Adon Rishon, which gave the world value. So all the Chil Hashem that was happening from the beginning of existence till that moment, now was going to take another direction. Why? Because what's happening at this moment, the Jews are about to leave Egypt in the merit of the Korban Pesach and the Milah. And they will arrive 50 days later to say Natsav Nishma. So that's the ultimate Kiddush Hashem. So we were Zocher to be in a position to bring about the ultimate Kiddush Hashem because of the Dam Milah and Dam Pesach, which came about as a result of Avram running when he saw the Malachim, believing they were humans, the blood dripped from him. So in the merit of those driplets of blood that were dripping from him, that he wasn't concerned, he was totally oblivious to it because he's so committed to that, we merited Dam Pesach and Dam Milah. Vayar Vayoretz L'Korosim. He saw them and he ran towards them. If the Torah is detailing every aspect of the Tzachnos Zorgim, he ran. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'schar Sholosh Ritzos Sheratzto. In the merit of the three runnings, it's mentioned he ran 3 times. And the Orutz L'fnei Bonecho Sholosh Ritzos B'shas Matan Torah. At the time when the Torah will be given to Klal Yisrael, I myself, whatever it is, will run 3 times before you. Ve'elu Sholosh Ritzos. Where do we find 3 Ritzos running by Avram? Vayav Rotz L'Korosim. He saw them and he ran. Ve'la Rotz Avram. When he was doing the hospitality, did everything with alacrity. He ran towards the calves to slaughter them. Then it says that he hurried to prepare them. Ma por levonov. What is the midah keneged midah, the measure of the measure? B'sinai shemar v'yomar. It says vayomar. This is in Zosah Brocha. Hashem b'sinai bo. Hashem came from Sinai. V'zorach misei lomo. And he shone from Seir. Hofir mehaporon. Ato batlem yukach. He said, yukach no mat mayim. Take some mayim. And he knows lefonecho mitzvahs Pesach. As you said, yukach mayim, I will give you. The mitzvah Pesach, shenema v'yikhu lehem ish seh. It's a v'yikhu. Each person took the sheep. Ato batlem no. He said, yukach no, please take. And he knows lefonecho mitzvahs Pesach. The mitzvah Pesach, al tochlu no, but you're not permitted to eat the Pesach if it's not fully broiled. No, I'm not fully broiled. Atomat. You said, yukach no ma'at mayim, ani agorish esoneh mat. When I destroy the enemies, I'm not just going to remove them all. They'll be removed gradually from Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because since we would not occupy the whole land, so the predator animals should not take over the land when there's inhabitants. That keeps the migration of the animals out of those locations. So mat. I just want to make it a point. Rashi asks a question over there when it says, I will remove them mat. So Rashi asks a question, name it a Chazal. It says that Hashem says, I will remove all the enemies. So why is he removing them mat? And it says in Zosah Brocha that if you do the will of Hashem, I will remove all predator animals from the land. They're not coming into the land. So even if the land is unoccupied, what do you worry about Chayro? Right? The reason why it's matmat, so the Chayro should not come into the land. But it says in Zosa Brocha that Hashem Hishpati Chayro min Oretz. Right? That's the Medrash's question. The Medrash answers, which Rashi cites the Medrash, that's only in Osim Ritzono Shel Mokum. If they do the will of God, Eretz Yisrael will merit that special protection that the predator animals be kept out, although the land is uninhabited. But since they're not Osim Ritzono Shel Mokum, since they're not doing the will of Hashem, there's going to be this migration of these predator animals. Therefore, I remove the ma'at. That's interesting. As you said, ma'at, really, naturally, the animals, they should be wiped out. We're talking about the 7 nations of Canaan. What did the 7 nations of Canaan represent? Is alocha lo schai kol neshama. We're not allowed any of them, there are no survivors. Why not? Because they represent evil. Represent evil. Hashem says, I'm willing to tolerate the evil, so you shouldn't be victims of the Chayro. But what about the Chil Hashem? These nations, they have to be expunged, they have to be removed. But what about the Chil Hashem? But the animals are going to come in. You mean, for the sake that the predator animals shouldn't come in, I'm going to tolerate Chil Hashem? The answer is yes. Because just as Avram said, Yukach no ma'at ma'im, he said ma'at. And what was he engaged in? He was engaged in chipping away at Chil Hashem, because that was the whole objective of his hospitality. Therefore, I will tolerate the Chil Hashem for the sake of Klal Yisrael, that they should not be victims of the Chayro. Although the Einam Osim Ritzono Shel Mokum. Although they're not doing the will of Hashem, otherwise they would have merited the protection, even if the land would have been uninhabited. Even though we failed, Hashem says, I'm willing to tolerate the Chil Hashem. Why? In the merit of Avram, that he said Ma'at. Metzia says, and it's also Medrash, but it's Gemara, which we studied it, and it's Soches Apolim, Tzadikim Omrim Ma'at, Osim Harbeh. Tzaddik speaks very little, but it does enormous. Rishoim Omrim Harbeh Veinamos Afil Ma'at. The evil, they promise you the world, they don't deliver as much as an iota. What are we contrasting? Avraham Avinu says, Ekho Pas Lechem. Have a morsel of bread. Take some bread. But what, and then when they agreed to accept this hospitality, what did he actually serve them? The Gemara tells us that Sudos Shlomo B'Shaito, the Shlomo's banquet, which he served every day at the height of his power, was not the equivalent what Avram served the Malachim. But Rich, what do you offer him? He says, have a bite of bread. But what did he deliver? So Tzadikim Omrim Ma'at, Vosim Harbeh. Ephron, originally when Avram negotiated for the Moshe Machpelah, he says, consider it yours. I'll give it to you gratis. But when it came to purchase it, to close the deal, the Gemara says it cost him millions of dollars. The Arbeh Kesef in the coinage, in the currency, was a fortune. But Avram would pay anything for the Moshe Machpelah. But he promised him, consider it yours. Rishoim, Omrim, Harbeh, Vein Muslim, Afil Mat. The Russia promises you the world. When it comes to delivery, he delivers. He gives you nothing. He paid with a pound of flesh for that Marsa Machpelah. So that's why he said Ekholek Pas Lechem. Because there he didn't want to burden them. You say, why don't you come and have a bite? And it's going to cost you 3 hours. He's going to serve every course is a major course. Right? So he took them into consideration, but ultimately, what was his intention? That if he's able to serve them more, and he did serve them much more. But what's Yukach no mat mayim? What's the no? What's the mat? It wasn't for drinking. He gave them the water to wash their feet. Right? Why did he ask them to wash their feet? Before they came into his house, he says, wash your feet. So the Gemara says that since he was concerned they may be sand worshippers, that they worship the dust of the earth, he didn't want they should track into his house the idolatry. That's why. Okay? So there's even a question in the Gemara that Avram may have been punished because he suspected that these people were idolaters. No, it's like almost like it's an insult. He offered the water because they may have been idolaters. He didn't want that dust to be idolatrous dust to be tracked into his house. Therefore, he said, "Yukach no mind." So the mat was with a sensitivity. Do me a favor. Make sure you scrub every bit of that dust off you. That's an open statement. You're not welcome if you have that. Yukach no mind. Take some water. Just rinse off your feet. So it's not as obvious as blatant that's what he's telling them. But ultimately, the objective will be accomplished. Of course, the amount of water that's going to be available, it'll be available. They should wash their feet appropriately. So the mat had to do with a sensitivity, was with a cheshbon. So it was as he made it to a cheshbon, to be able to be effective in his objective, which kiruv, to bring them to monotheism. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, although you don't deserve they should be taken out. The seven nations, they're rod, they're evil. That's why they have to be destroyed. But for the sake of you saying mat, I will take out the nations gradually, because if I take them that one time, your children are not going to merit that divine protection, and they'll be victims of the predator animals. Therefore, I'm willing to tolerate the ra for the sake of your mat, and therefore, it'll take a while till they're totally removed from the land. What you're saying is correct, even more simply. Hosting the angels was not one of the tests. Wasn't. It was just the reality of Avram, the way he experienced Chil Hashem, and he couldn't tolerate it. Therefore, he was pained initially, and when he saw them, it's the way he actually actualized his kiruv activity. Every detail. The Akedah was the most difficult of the tests. The most difficult, as we said. He had as a child at 99 years, at 100 years old. Hashem promises him he's the future of existence. And then Hashem says to him, and the child born to you in old age, who you love, so on and so forth, sacrifice him. There were multiple problems. Firstly, it's his child. He loves him, so on and so on. And there's seemingly a contradiction here. Here Hashem says it's the future. And then Hashem says you can end it because you're going to bring him up as a burnt sacrifice. That's why it was the most difficult of the tests. And despite that, it's like what? Hashem was offering him a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and he's running to get that pot of gold. Rises early. He's 137 years old, even age-wise. He's 37 years later, we talk about it here, 38 years later. He's an older person. He's running, rises early, hitches his own donkey, does everything himself. And where is he going? He's going to do something which it's like he's being crushed by all these questions and by just the activity that he's doing. It's contrary to his whole being. This is not contrary. He's motivated. If he's able to bring about Kiddush Hashem, he's motivated. It's the ultimate opportunity here. There's no obstructions here. That's why they're not comparable. Any comments?
Beautiful. Rather, it seems so incongruous that everything that Abraham has said so far has a benefit, and yet when he says, ask one question about Hashem, we have to go to Egypt for 400 years, and we have to serve 400 years. It's hard to understand why, unless Hashem knew we had to go to Egypt for 400 years, that had to happen for us to become a nation.
Egypt was because there was a spiritual deficiency. That question was an inappropriate question. How do I know? It's called one of two. It was an inappropriate question. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Hashem, when they withdrew the straw subsidy, he asked the question. Hashem said to Moshe, Atotirim, you will see the present redemption, but the entry into the land, because you said something which is inappropriate, you're not going into Eretz Yisrael. You know what it meant if Moshe would have gone to Eretz Yisrael, taken the Jews into Eretz Yisrael, how much he wanted to go, how he supplicated Hashem endlessly. Hashem says, just keep quiet. I don't want to hear about it anymore. You're at that special level, and you ask a certain kind of question, it's inappropriate. Inappropriate.
So
And
that
it's got a
inappropriateness,
very negative consequence. Let me explain why.
yeah, it was,
Especially,
yeah.
The root of the tree.
yeah, no, but I'm bringing out a different point.
The consequences were
So it's not is it the foundation within him?
Who, Avram?
Yeah, that needed to be corrected,
Yes, yeah. This is what Alan alluded to, which I said in the
Yeah.
past. There's a basic question we ask. We say that a child doesn't pay for the sins of the father. So we're paying off his debt. Avram fails, we have to go spend 400 years. We have to spend 210 years in Egypt until what preceded that, which that's how we come up with the number 400. Let him be punished. Why do we have to be punished? So what Alan mentioned, because Avram is the foundation. If you have a faulty foundation, the structure can't stand. Once the structure stands and you have a problem, you have to correct that problem. That's when we speak about a child doesn't pay for the sins of the father. Avram is the foundation of Klal Yisrael. If the deficiency lies in the foundation, and you want that foundation to be secure and eternal, you have to weed out and you have to rebuild it every aspect of that root. And as a result of the fruits that will grow on that tree are going to be pure fruits. Otherwise, it becomes a problem.
and so as a result of this particular question, I guess, are all of us supposed to just it's almost as if we should be suspending whatever questions we have. Not that we're not supposed to inquire, but sort of whatever the course of life is, it's almost as if you should just be going with the flow.
Let me explain to you. God forbid, person suffers a tragedy, right? The Gemara says in Brochos, "Kishem shvochem al tov, kach v'vochem al hara." As one says a blessing on good fortune, one says blessing on tragedy. And the Gemara says, just as one says it, Allah tov, you say shechionu, and you say it with joy, with meaning accepting it as something which is beneficial. When God forbid a person suffers a tragedy, although the text is a different text because we don't understand why it's beneficial, we say dynamis. Person says, God forbid a person suffers a tragedy. It doesn't make sense. You know, I have a problem with this. God forbid a person says that, it's very serious. If you should know better, you're a believing Jew, and you say that, it doesn't make sense. And use that kind of terminology. If you say, I would like to understand, okay. We say dynamis. We don't understand, we accept it. Unequivocally, God's the true judge. And that's why we even use a different terminology when we say it. Shechianu, we're ecstatic. Dynamis, we don't understand, but we accept it as fact, he's dynamis. You have a right to ask questions, it's how you ask the question. I'm paying this, and of course we don't understand, but maybe there was some kind of failing in our behavior, that's why it happened. If we behave differently, maybe that could have averted it. Okay, that's okay. God forbid you have October 7th, the closest thing to World War II. It's genocide. Why do we deserve that? Where did we go wrong? We're not questioning Hashem, why he brought it about. Definitely it's because there's an imbalance, the good and the evil. That was part of the correction. But what do we have to address? What do we have to focus on? It's a valid question. It's a very important question. To shore up the breaches in the foundation. Like people say, that's archaic Judaism. We're progressive, that's archaic. That statement, that's a heretical statement. Torah is immutable. That's one of the animamits. That's one of the 13 tenets of Jewish belief. It will not change. It's immutable. But it seems to be archaic. When you don't understand, it's archaic. Einstein's theory of relativity, it's a bunch of nonsense. The formulas, they don't make any sense. Of course they don't make sense because you have a 50 IQ. That's why it doesn't make sense. But if you have the IQ to be able to appreciate it, then you understand it makes a lot of sense.
If somebody who had the clarity that Avraham Avinu had asked the question,
Say he had the same level, he'd be culpable, he'd be liable, but it would only affect him. Would not affect his children.
my question is, if he had that level of clarity, and we're however thousands of years removed from it, how can we be held to account to the same standard?
We're not held to the same standard. Not at all. That's what I said. I'm just saying it's a wrong thing to, certain questions are inappropriate for us to ask to also ask. But because we don't have that level of clarity, therefore the consequence of the question is not as serious. For that reason.
Rabbi, why didn't Hashem preempt Abraham